If you're not familiar with XState, it's just a JavaScript library for creating finite state machines and state charts. Specifically, it's used a lot for creating sturdy user interfaces. If you're not familiar with what a finite state machine is or what a state chart is, don't worry too much, but the XState library and website has a lot of information on what these are. Essentially, it's basically a way to manage states so that you're not getting into impossible states. You can set up guards to protect from transitioning from one state to another that you shouldn't. All these sort of great things that allow us to build some pretty trustworthy user interfaces. Now, I kind of was vague about a lot of that, so I think it's a lot easier to understand something by going through an example. So this is a simple authentication state machine that I built. And I'm using the XState visualizer to basically take my code and show it as a bunch of boxes and arrows, because pretty much everyone, whether you're a coder or not, can understand what boxes and arrows are. So I'm particularly interested in this library for my company because we really like diagrams. We really value them in our company. And not everyone is a JavaScript developer or a web developer. So it's going to be really easy to take my code and demonstrate it, using boxes and arrows and whatnot to, my higher ups, to clients, whoever. So that's why I'm particularly interested in this. So I went ahead and made this example, and we're going to kind of walk through what it does just by looking visually at it. And we're going to have to do a little bit over here, but I'll explain that as we go. So basically what you can see is we have this authentication big box. That just means this is a machine. So it's something that, it can run, it can do stuff. Inside of it, there's another box called logged out. That's actually a smaller machine inside the machine. So you can have these nested machines. This little arrow means that this is the initial state. In state machines, you always have to have some initial state. So the initial state here is logged out and no errors. And we can actually go over to this tab and look at the current state, or the current machine basically. It's got a value, logged out, no errors. And it's got a context, but we'll get to that in a second. So first thing we can do is we see these little things that are kind of buttons. There's a condition on it, but we're gonna get to that in a second. So first we're gonna click on this, and what we see is it immediately sends us to the invalid email state. So the reason is because when you do sign up, it wants you to provide an email. So we can go ahead and go to the events, and here we can actually add some information to do the sign up. So we can add this, and it'll say, okay, we're going to try and do a sign up event, but we also need to pass in some other information. Now, the way that you would do this normally when we actually put this in the real application is through forms and through buttons and all that sort of stuff, but we're just going to do it here just for the purposes of showing what will happen. So we'll have an email field, and we'll just add an email. This will be at fake.com, and then a password. Let's try that. Let's make it the password, as everyone did back in the day when you didn't know that was insecure. At least I did. So we're going to go ahead and send that. And now we'll see that, oh, we actually have an invalid password. So the reason is because in our definition, there's this regex that is basically explaining, that doesn't allow certain passwords. And in the real UI, we'd give the user feedback as to what passwords are valid and what passwords are not. So I'm going to edit this and change this password to have a capital letter, have some numbers, maybe a special character, and we're going to try and send again. And you can see it goes ahead and goes to the authenticating, and what happened was it actually got an error, so it went back to auth failed. But if we look at our state now, we can see that we have that context has been updated to the email and the password, because it went ahead, and when we signed up, it did this do assign email and do assign password. So a nice thing is, as you're transitioning to states, you can have some kind of, sort of side effect-y type things go on. You can say, when I'm transitioning from this state to that state, I want to go ahead and save this data, or put this data, or update this, or check this thing. So you can do all sorts of stuff as you're checking in between, which is really nice. So here we got an error, and we can see that it sent us back to the auth failed logout screen. For some reason, we're mocking up basically that 50% of the time we want to reject. 50% of the time we actually want to complete the authentication, just to show what it might happen if something failed. So we're actually going to try that again. We're going to try this one again and see perfect, we get to the logged in state. And so that's the state we really want to be at. This is not the final state because we still need to allow them to log out. There's actually no final state in this authentication machine, but we could say if we wanted to for some reason that the logged in is the final state, you cannot log out. That'd be a pretty frustrating experience, but that's what it would look like. And so we can log out and we'll get back here. So what this actually looks like as a UI, this is the exact same code, but basically we have, this little sign in form and it works all the exact same way. If I do that and then I say submit, let me add a little bit more. It'll say there's an invalid email, so maybe we got that. Then we submit again and there's an invalid password because there was none. But we're gonna put in a valid one and submit, and it'll say creating your account. It failed, something went wrong, please try again, but it saved all our data, which is really great. We don't want to lose that. It put it in the context. We submit again, and it worked, and we can log out. So that's how state machines work. That's how statechart works, and that's how specifically XState works. And this visualizer is really, I think, one of the greatest things about XState and makes it so easy and accessible. Because not only does this provide value to me, now it provides value to my entire company.